So there's a show on Netflix. I guess it's based on a book. I actually just talked to someone who is pretty familiar with it. I think I'd read it. It's called The Three Body Problem. It's a sci-fi novel, and there's a scene that was just going crazy. Every time I see it, it always shocks me because you hear communism and you kind of think of your harmless, nutty professor at some liberal institution. They don't have much pull. Obviously, we see a lot of elements of this, unfortunately, kind of creeping in society. That's a constant topic. But as a part of this series, there is a real live struggle session. And if we could play with no volume, if that'd be possible, because I think the visuals just absolutely like knocked me off my seat. I just had to look in to see what all this was about. Basically, in the book, it is a wife and husband. The wife tells on the husband because the husband is a physics professor, and he was teaching basic physics concepts, and that was enough to get him in trouble with the state because the state, it wasn't a state-approved science to be taught. And so what they did was they brought him in front of a crowd of people chanting, and the wife was up there pointing at him. He had to wear like a dunce cap, basically, and they beat him to death. And yeah, the rest is very graphic because they kill him on the stage. But someone tweeted about it, and the tweet was, "What did y'all think communism meant? Vibes, papers, essays?" It always reminds me of how many lives were taken by communism in brutal, revolutionary, ruthless fashion. The slogans reminded me so much of like slogans that we've just heard over the last couple of years, like Black Lives Matter or trust the science, or, you know, whatever phrase just gets repeated over and over again, because of course that means you're devoid of actually nuance or thinking. It's just basically to get rile people up. And yeah, seeing that just was like scary to me what's possible. This was on Netflix. This is crazy to me that this was out on a mainstream, because it's so rare to see this in mainstream form because China actually has such a large influence. Remember China like made John Cena apologize for saying that Taiwan was a country? They are dominant over what messages get out because they hold so much power. But yeah, this came out and it really stirred a lot of people up because it was just shocking to see. This was a reality of what happened in China throughout the 1900s. To read through like what Fulton Sheen had to say about communism and John Paul II had to say about communism, it almost like it loses its value a little bit because I think it gets talked about so much and we don't see things like this. Like, it's when you see it visually like this, you're like, whoa, this is kind of scary.
It brings it to life.
Totally. It makes it feel so real. So like, I don't know. It's hard not to connect to this to a lot of things that I've kind of seen in regards to like 2020, like what we got with rioting there, what we're getting with DEI in schools. Like, it all feels very like early stages of a lot of this kind of thing. So the Twilight Zone was that this was put out in any mainstream media, period.